Hey everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Theory. In today's video, we're going to go over episode 9 of X-Men 97 titled Tolerance is Extinction Part 2. This is a 3-part series. We saw part 1 last week. We're going over part 2 this week. And then the finale will be part 3, which will happen next week. But I do believe that they are signed on for a season 2. But I have some theories about the ending that will kind of lead into season 2. But we'll get to that. But before we start, leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. We're going to get into this episode because it was an insane episode. And I got to admit, at first, I was like, it's good. But the more I watched it, the more it went harder and harder. So we're going to break it down, theorize, look at Easter eggs, and just pretty much talk about Tolerance is Extinction Part 2, so let's get into the video. Before the episode starts, for the first time this season, we get the previously on X-Men, which has Wolverine's voice in the background instead of Scott's. Perhaps foreshadowing Wolverine will have a rather big role in this, and there's a lot of foreshadows with Wolverine, because there's a pretty big moment at the end. I'm sure if you're watching this, you saw the episode, but that they added Storm back with her new updated suit, so all the X-Men but Gambit are added into this now. The only other thing I realized in the closing shot of the X-Men versus the other mutants, the people running from the Sentinels in between the fights are not humans rather than human Sentinels. The X-Mansion is destroyed in this opening shot, with it being the aftermath of Tolerance is Extinction Part 1. Charles wakes up in bed with his hand out, and is probably being the first time in months, maybe even a year, he's slept alone. Charles shifts his legs off the bed and sets himself up to be in the wheelchair, with a rather sad tone playing in the background of this. Just shows how the X-Men have their backs against the walls right now. Magneto is in his isolated cave on an island, viewing his aftermath of the cargo boats being shut down, as well as the rest of the world, because as we know in the last episode, Magneto shut all power supplies down with his powers. Magneto puts his helmet on, and I wonder how he knew to put the helmet on if he never actually saw Charles return. Last time we saw his helmet was in the mansion, so I don't know if he has just a stack of helmets or if this is the same helmet. He raises Asteroid M out of the ocean, which we saw in the intro card, as well as the last time we saw it in season 4 of the show. Over to Bastion, he is in his hometown with all the frozen in time human Sentinels, and he is carrying his mother, where we see him tearing up. Jubilee and Roberto somehow escaped being arrested last episode, and I just wonder if there was some deleted scene of what happened, because the last we saw them, they were being walked out by the human Sentinels, arrested, and now they are fleeing from an angry mob. They are backed into an alleyway corner by an angry mob who looks all just to be human. They are then saved by the returning Storm and Forge, where we see Forge jump down and even use thrusters on his mechanical leg. And Jubilee is just so happy to see Storm. Professor X wipes off the dust and dirt from his yellow hover chair, but we see how destroyed it is after the attack. So Charles must go into his regular wheelchair, where we see him in his suit as well as the blankets on his legs. Bastion puts his mother in bed, and we see above her the final dream painting Bastion painted as a child, but I do have to ask, when did they hang that up? Do they just have multiple copies of that? Because the last episode, when we saw Cable, Jean Grey, and Cyclops see the painting, it was on a table. So, you know, just things that go through my mind. I assume his mother is not dead, just powered off for the time being because of Magneto, but it's odd to see that Bastion is tearing up from this. Charles and Scott are arguing back at the mansion about everything, giving the X-Men to Magneto. Charles explains he wanted them to live their lives instead of being in charge of the X-Men. They go back and forth, and Professor X echoes Val Cooper in the last episode when she frees Magneto of always going back to the same place, which will be a theme of this show. Charles extends his hand, but in anger, Scott walks past him, ignoring it. Rogue finally wakes up to Nightcrawler by her side, and Nightcrawler grabs her hand. Rogue asks if Remy survived, but as we know, he did not. At least for the time being. I'm still going to hold out hope that he will come back. Maybe not in this season, but the next season. Forge, Storm, Roberto, and Jubilee return to the mansion. We see Jean and Beast. Beast and Forge are so happy to see each other, and Beast checks out Forge's leg, fascinated by it. Forge says how his legs still works and missed the blackout, because he explains he added a deflator on it, and says because he just thought about it. But as we know, Bastion and Forge work together. So I wonder if this was Forge kind of preparing for an inevitable, because you don't just think of something like that unless you kind of know or prepare for something like that. They go over the massacre and plans, and we see photos of Harmony, Pennsylvania on fire, as well as a cache for gold place all on fire. Wolverine says about Magneto, the man just declared war on the whole planet. This day ends one way, and then releases his claws. And after watching the episode, we all know that this is kind of a foreshadow and what Wolverine was hinting towards. Cyclops takes charge and splits the team between Team Blue and Team Gold, which of course is the X-Men colors. Storm, Jean, Forge, Morph, and Beast and Cable all go to Bastion while the rest go over to Magneto, but the group will see some changes momentarily. Roberto is seen with an X-Men suit, which is accurate to the first suit that he wears in the comics. Forge and Beast believe that they can cure the Human Sentinel. Rogue is also wearing Gambit's trench coat, as well as a green suit that we've seen her in her first appearance in the comics. Charles admits to trying to recruit Bastion as a child to come to the school, but his mother was against it, saying that she slammed the door in his face. Beast and Forge fix up a scrambler, one we've seen before, that they used to stop the Phoenix, and then we get the scene of Storm
to permanently disable his control of Prime.
And she just does not want that technology available to the world, and that's understandable because she temporarily lost her powers because of it. They are interrupted by Magneto. Magneto bashes on Charles, calling out his girlfriend. Magneto says he promised a boy a future with no fear, only to watch his frightened eyes be vaporized. And that, of course, is the scene from the attack on Genosha when he is talking to Leech right before Leech dies. Magneto's speech moves some of the X-Men actually to take his side, one being Rogue, who is obviously holding in the anger since Remy's death, and even Roberto, who's holding in the anger towards his mom after she gave him up in the last episode. Rogue brings up Jean dying, Bishop being MIA, and Morph being killed off in the second episode of the original show as a way to justify her turn. The X-Men must go to Morar Island. In the hangar, we see two Blackbirds, one with the Shahard engine as well as a smaller jet. There's also a red convertible that we have seen Rogue drive, a motorcycle with flames that Wolverine drives in X-Men Evolution, a smaller version of the yellow hover chair as well as a blue bulkier version of the chair, so it seems like there's just a few chairs for Charles Xavier. We also see the Wolverine Mutant Cycle from 1991 Toy Biz and Charles's blue Rolls Royce. In this shot, we all see them rock new suits, which in my opinion, the majority of these suits aren't as good as the original suits that we saw at the beginning of the season. That's just my opinion. I could say everybody's is kind of like whack besides Wolverine's, but you let me know down below. Cyclops has with his headpiece, there's the Marvel Girl costume, Wolverine's brown and yellow suit, Charles's jumpsuit, and Rogue's green suit. And we get the scene teased in the final trailer.
Am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
Which, of course, is a nod or maybe even a shot at the X-Men Fox movies when Wolverine asks,
Actually go outside in these things?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
So, I don't know, you let me know down below. Is this a shot at them or is this just a playful nod? I'm going to go with a shot at. Cable's suit is actually from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. In preparation, Nightcrawler prays, Jubilee burns a business card of Roberto's because she feels so betrayed that he went to Magneto's side. We see them all walk out with their new suits, and then we have to point out Morph has a suit with shoulder pads on it. Team Gold goes to Bastion where he is basically like charging the robotic sentinels and he senses their presence. Jean and Storm share a moment.
Make them mind your weather, sister.
And them weather your mind.
Which is just a really cool moment because it just shows how much of like sisters they are. In the town, they go to where we see DeMayo's diner, which of course is showrunner Bo DeMayo. But as we know, he's like fired from Marvel, so I don't know like why they would leave that in. I don't know. Then we get the fight, but of course, Morph turns into none other than the Hulk. Everybody was so excited about, even screaming instead of Hulk smash, Morph smash. And I know everyone just loved that. Not the actual Hulk being in it, but the actual Hulk could be a hint at a future potential appearance. You know, being that we've seen Spider-Man and Captain America in this show. If you didn't know, back then they couldn't bring the Hulk in the show besides the one episode where they referred to him as a giant green robot when he fought Juggernaut, who of course was another person Morph switched into in the last episode. Sinister fights Jean, moving between the shadows, and should I say, very sinisterly. Sinister says he could tell her when he switched both her and Madeline, but she's not interested. And I wonder if we actually will find out maybe in the next episode when they're switched, because, you know, everybody wants to know. Jean Grey defeats him, but I will say momentarily. Over to the blue team, they go to Asteroid M. The team goes to Magneto on his throne of made sentinels. Rogue stops Wolverine from attacking Magneto, and Cyclops and Nightcrawler bob and weave through the metal thrown at them by Magneto. Jubilee and Roberto fight, and Roberto is sorry for what he does to Jubilee, but Jubilee is just not about that, and she just goes off on him, showing how betrayed she feels by him at taking Magneto's side. Charles and Magneto try to speak when Magneto says,
Shut up.
And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed like when I saw this. Telepathically, Professor X says to Cyclops to blast Magneto's helmet off. We go back to Sinister, who retreats to Bastion, but that is short-lived because Bastion can see right through these lies and knows Sinister would not retreat like he does, and it turns out to just be Morph who morphed into Sinister. Beast tries to capitalize on Bastion, but ends up losing the device that him and Forge worked on. We then notice that Sinister takes control of Cable, signified by the red gem on his head, and they start to attack Jean. Cable says he's a world-class telepath like his real mother, and we get a matchup of powers between the two until Jean connects with Scott. Now, it's never really fleshed out, I don't believe, of Cable having the telepathic connections and powers, but this is really cool, and, I just wonder what happens after the scene, because in Scott's visor, we see Jean say, "I love you," but with her power, her blue power, fade away until it looks like she's gone. I don't believe she is truly gone, but who knows with this show. I would be shocked if in one season we saw 2 X-Men gone, but it could be possible. Imagine, though, Scott having to live a life where he technically loses 2 Jean Greys, Jean Grey and Madeline Pryor. Could we see an evil Cyclops? Wolverine pries off Magneto's helmet and Charles uses his powers on Magneto. We see Magneto suffering, fighting until Cyclops blasts Charles to stop him from doing it, saying they need more time. So momentarily I thought we would see the evil Cyclops. It seems that he just knows the Gold Team is not doing well after what he saw with Jean Grey. Magneto capitalizes on this by putting his helmet on Charles, stopping him from using his powers altogether. In all this, Wolverine, who was hinted at the whole time, stabs Magneto in the back with his claws, puncturing him. Magneto, in a counter, uses his powers in a crazy way and rips the adamantium from Wolverine's skeleton. And this is ripped right from the X-Men Volume 2, issue number 25 in 1993, and ends the episode. So, the ending was just absolutely insane, what will happen to Wolverine, but let's get into it. Some questions that I want to ask. So insane, Wolverine loses what makes him kind of Wolverine, but it's possible he'll be fine and go on without that skull, but it is insane. There is a comic where Wolverine ends up getting the adamantium from Sabretooth, so maybe they'll adopt that, because who knows? But it's just crazy to see the hatred both Magneto and Wolverine have for each other. And this, of course, is because of Cyclops. Don't forget that happened to Wolverine. Cyclops stopped Professor X from continuing on Magneto. So we know Wolverine and Cyclops don't really get along. Will this, kind of puncture their relationship a little more? Questions I want to ask. What will the finale entail? What happened to Jean? What happened to Cable? What happened to Wolverine? Will we see an evil Cyclops? And then what other people were theorizing all over Twitter, could this be the birth of Onslaught, the being born from Professor X and Magneto's anger? Now, I don't believe that if it's true, will play a big role in the season, but perhaps a setup for next season, which is kind of what I'm referring to at the beginning of the breakdown, that this could be kind of a setup for season 2 with Onslaught coming into this. Baltimeo tweeted, which is a reference to Star Trek, and what I gathered from the internet is that he's referring to the episode in Star Trek where they kept going in a loop until they were able to break it. We could possibly see something like this in terms of the attack on Genosha, because Beast says it was a point that needed to happen, so maybe they're going to keep going through the attack on Genosha together until they could stop that attack. I don't really know, because Bo DeMeo has said time travel will not get them out of this, so I don't know if we're thinking too much into it, but you let me know down below. But great episode, and I think they could actually end the season in a potential bad note with the X-Men possibly losing, because I know season 2 is pretty much confirmed. I don't know if it's actually confirmed, but I'm pretty sure that it's like 95% confirmed. But I'm going to have a video breaking down what I think could happen in the finale, so stay tuned for that. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Do you think it was a good follow-up for the ending for the season finale? This show has been incredible, and again, every week it just gets better and better, and I just feel like the finale is going to go crazy. Will we see the Avengers even pop up? Because, Spider-Man, Captain America, Hulk all appearing at some point in the season. But you let me know what you thought of the episode, what you thought of the season so far, if you're ready for the finale. I know I'm not ready. The show has been great to watch, great to break down, great to theorize. But thanks for watching. Leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Have an incredible day.